Hey everyone. Hey everyone. I never thought I'd be one of those people posting here, but life really has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Emily, 32F, for almost 7 years. We've always been that couple people described as solid. We laughed a lot, had our little routines, Saturday morning pancakes, Netflix marathons, spontaneous road trips. Honestly, I thought we were happy. But looking back, I can pinpoint when things started to shift. It wasn't dramatic at first, more like small cracks forming in what I thought was a stable wall. Emily started spending more time at work. She's in marketing, so late nights and weekend projects weren't unheard of, but it started happening a lot. She used to call me during her breaks just to chat, but those stopped too. When I asked about it, she brushed it off, said things were just crazy busy at the office. Then came the mood changes. She'd get irritated at the smallest things, like me asking if she wanted dinner or why she wasn't answering my texts. She started dressing differently too. More makeup, new lingerie that I didn't see her wear for me. When I mentioned it, she said she just wanted to feel confident again. At the time, I told myself not to be paranoid. I trusted her. She'd never given me a solid reason not to. But there was this growing pit in my stomach that something was off. I didn't know it then, but that feeling was the start of the worst chapter of my life. So yeah, the feeling that something was off just wouldn't go away. You know when your gut starts screaming, but your heart keeps trying to shut it up? That was me for weeks. Emily started guarding her phone like it was a state secret. She used to leave it on the coffee table or plugged in by the bed, but suddenly it was always in her hand or face down next to her. Notifications stopped lighting up the screen. "Do not disturb," she said. When I asked who was texting her so much, she rolled her eyes and said, "It's just work. Stop being so paranoid." Then there were the new friends out of nowhere. She started mentioning this guy, Ryan, from her office. She'd drop his name casually, like, "Oh, Ryan said the client loved my pitch." Or Ryan and I stayed late finishing the report. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, coworkers exist, right? But soon Ryan became a constant character in every story, every excuse. One night she came home at midnight, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. I half joked, "Did Ryan drive you home?" She laughed, that fake high-pitched laugh she does when she's uncomfortable, and said, "Don't be ridiculous. We're just friends." Stop acting jealous. It's so unattractive. That line stuck with me. Jealousy is unattractive. As if being concerned about your spouse disappearing for hours with someone else was a fashion faux pas. But still, I pushed it down. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was being that insecure husband you see in movies who ruins a good thing because of paranoia. I wanted to trust her. I needed to trust her. If only I had listened to my gut back then, before everything exploded. It happened on a Tuesday, one of those completely ordinary days that somehow ends up changing your life. I'd gotten off work early and decided to surprise Emily with dinner. She'd mentioned a big presentation that day, and I figured a nice meal would be a good way to celebrate. When I got home, her car wasn't in the driveway. That wasn't unusual. She sometimes stayed late, but something told me to check the location sharing app we'd had on our phones since forever. We used it mostly for convenience, meeting up places, checking traffic, that kind of thing. Except when I opened it, her location didn't show office. It showed a hotel downtown. At first, I froze. I told myself, there's gotta be an explanation. Maybe it was a work event, or maybe she had a client meeting there. But it was 7:45 p.m., not exactly business hours. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it. I tried calling her. No answer. Texted her, "Hey, how's your presentation going?" She replied 10 minutes later, "Still at the office. Long night, lol." That's when it clicked. Every weird mood swing, every late night, every time she said I was being paranoid, it all came together in one sickening rush. She was lying to my face. I didn't even think. I grabbed my keys and drove downtown. The entire way there, I was running through scenarios in my head. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was about to embarrass myself. Maybe, just maybe, my wife wasn't the person I thought she was. But deep down, I already knew. I pulled into the hotel. I pulled into the hotel parking lot with my hands shaking so bad I could barely keep the key in the ignition. My brain was screaming 1,000 things at once. Turn around. Don't do this. You already know. But my heart wanted proof. I needed to see it with my own eyes because some part of me still hoped I was wrong. Her car was there, parked neatly in the corner, half hidden by a silver SUV. My stomach dropped. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, just staring at it, trying to convince myself she could be inside meeting a client. Maybe a team dinner. Maybe anything but what my gut already knew. I went into the lobby. The receptionist gave me that polite, wary smile you give to someone who looks like they're about to fall apart. I asked as calmly as I could if there was a conference going on. She said no. Then I asked if Emily's last name was checked in. The woman hesitated just a flicker, but it was enough. She said she couldn't give out that information, but her face told me everything. That's when I saw them. The elevator doors opened, and there she was, Emily, hair a little messy, wearing the same clothes she'd worn to work, holding her heels in one hand. And right behind her, Ryan, laughing, comfortable, like this was routine. She saw me before I said a word, her face drained of color, eyes wide like she'd seen a ghost. Ryan froze too, then immediately stepped back like a coward. All I could manage was, wow, the office sure looks different tonight. She stammered something about it not being what it looked like, that they were just talking. I remember laughing, actually laughing, right there in the hotel lobby because it was so absurd. She tried to grab my arm, whispering frantically that we should go home and talk privately, that I was making a scene. I told her the scene was already made, and for the first time in 7 years, she had nothing to say. We drove home in silence. She sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed, looking out the window like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I was gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. The only sound was the hum of the tires and my heartbeat hammering in my ears. As soon as we got inside, she started talking fast. That defensive, panicked tone people use when they're trying to outrun the truth. It wasn't what it looked like. You don't understand. We were just talking about work. I told her to stop lying. I saw them. I saw the hotel. I saw her face when she realized she'd been caught. She switched tactics. Suddenly it was about me. You've been so distant lately. You never listen anymore. I felt lonely and Ryan was just there for me. Classic script. It was surreal hearing the person I loved most in the world gaslight me in real time, flipping the story until somehow I was responsible for her crawling into a hotel room with another man. Then came the tears, crocodile ones. She sobbed about making a mistake, said it was a one-time thing, said she didn't even know why it happened. But when I asked how long it had been going on, she hesitated, just for a second, and that second told me everything. A few weeks, she said finally, eyes darting away. That was another lie. I could feel it. And the worst part? She still wouldn't admit it fully. She clung to the story like, if she said it enough times, it might become true. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there, numb, watching her, realizing that every smile, every "I love you" for God knows how long had been a performance. That night I slept on the couch. She didn't come out once. The next few days were a blur. That kind of hazy half-dream state where everything feels both too real and not real at all. Emily acted like we could just talk things out. She kept trying to spin it like it was an argument we could resolve if I'd just calm down. But I couldn't calm down. Every time she spoke, I heard the echo of that hotel lobby in my head. I started noticing more inconsistencies in her story. She said it had been a few weeks, but when I checked our shared credit card statements, yeah, I went there. I found hotel charges going back 3 months. Restaurants near her office she never mentioned. Even a jewelry store receipt, something she clearly didn't buy for me. When I showed her the proof, she broke down again, claiming it was emotional before it got physical, as if that somehow made it better. Then she said she tried to end it, but didn't know how. I asked her straight up, "Are you in love with him?" She paused. Again. A long, unbearable silence. Then she whispered, "I don't know." That sentence hit harder than anything else, because it wasn't even guilt anymore. It was uncertainty, like she was actually considering him as an option. After that, I couldn't even look at her. I packed a small bag and went to stay at my brother's place for a few days. She blew up my phone the entire time. Texts, voicemails, crying, begging me to come home and talk like adults. But every message felt faker than the last. She said she wanted to make things right, but she still wouldn't tell the full truth. She just wanted to control the narrative, to make herself look like a victim of her own mistake. And for the first time since it all started, I realized something. I didn't trust her at all anymore. Not even a little. After a few days at my brother's, I came back home. I couldn't stay away forever, not because I wanted to forgive her yet, but because I had to face the mess head on. Walking through that front door felt like stepping into a war zone. Everything in our apartment suddenly seemed tainted. Her perfume lingering on the couch, the pictures on the wall, even the coffee mugs in the cabinet. I confronted her again. This time, I laid it all out. The hotel, the charges, the timeline, the lies. I expected tears, maybe more excuses, but instead, she went full-on defensive. "You're being dramatic. This is exactly why you drive me away." What the hell? She actually tried to flip it so that I was the problem. My anger, my suspicion, my jealousy, all of it apparently justified her actions. She called me controlling, paranoid, even unloving. Meanwhile, I was shaking so hard I could barely speak. Then came the worst part. She smirked just for a second and said, "Honestly, I don't know if I want to fix this marriage." It was like someone punched me straight in the chest. All the love, all the trust, all the years I thought meant something. Gone. She said it casually, like it was a minor inconvenience. And in that moment, something inside me broke. I realized I had two choices: spiral into bitterness and let this destroy me, or start planning my way out of this toxic mess. The anger and betrayal were overwhelming, but beneath it, a strange clarity started to emerge. I couldn't stay with someone who treated me like this, who lied and gaslit me, and who had zero remorse for the pain she caused. I had to figure out the next step. For me, the days after that confrontation were like living in slow motion. I went through this bizarre cocktail of emotions: rage, heartbreak, disbelief, and a hollow, almost numb sadness. I kept replaying every memory we had together, every laugh, every "I love you," and trying to separate what was real from what was a performance. Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, imagining her with him, imagining her lying to me again, wondering if I'd ever be able to trust anyone the same way again. The little things cut the deepest. Hearing her laugh on the phone, seeing a text notification pop up, even walking past the places we used to go together. Everything was tainted. I caught myself second-guessing my own instincts. Had I overreacted? No. The evidence was there, clear as day. But the betrayal wasn't just about the affair itself. It was about who she became while she was lying to me, and how easily she tried to erase my feelings. I went through all the stages of grief: anger, bargaining, sadness, and even moments of numb relief that at least the truth was out. I started writing down my thoughts, trying to make sense of them, trying to regain some control. I realized I couldn't move forward while trapped in the constant cycle of what-ifs and lies. And yet, amidst all that pain, a part of me began to see a glimmer of strength. I was surviving. I was processing. I was beginning to understand that her actions didn't define me. After a week of living in that emotional fog, I finally reached a conclusion. I couldn't stay. Not now, not ever, not with the trust shattered and her blatant refusal to fully own what she did. I realized that staying would only be prolonging the pain and giving her the power to keep manipulating me. I sat her down one evening in what I hoped would be a calm, final conversation. She tried her usual tactics at first: crying, pleading, guilt-tripping. "We can fix this. I love you. You're overreacting." I didn't respond immediately. I let her speak, let the words roll off me like water on glass. Then I said clearly, I can't do this. I can't be in a marriage where lies, betrayal, and manipulation are the foundation. I deserve better, and I won't settle for less. She gasped, almost like I'd hit her physically. Then she tried another angle. But we have a life together. Don't throw it all away. And that's when I realized something crucial. It wasn't throwing it away. She had already thrown it away the moment she stepped into that hotel room with him and continued lying to me for months. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I started separating our finances, making arrangements to move out, and quietly planning my own space where I could start rebuilding. She protested, of course. She accused me of being cold, heartless, irrational. But deep down, I knew this was the only path that could eventually bring me peace. For the first time in years, I felt like I was reclaiming control of my life. And that, oddly enough, was empowering. Moving out was surreal. I didn't take much, just the essentials, a few sentimental items I needed for closure, and a box of memories that hurt more than they comforted. Walking away from the apartment we'd shared for 7 years felt like amputating a part of myself, but also like finally breathing after holding my breath for too long. The first few nights alone were the hardest. Silence can be cruel when your mind refuses to rest. I'd lie awake replaying everything. The laughter, the lies, the hotel, the excuses. But slowly, day by day, I started to reclaim small things. A morning coffee on my balcony, a jog through the park, reading without interruption. Little rituals that reminded me I still had a life separate from her deceit. I also leaned on friends and family more than I ever had before. At first it felt humiliating, having to explain what happened, feeling like everyone saw me as the guy she cheated on. But their support was invaluable. They reminded me I wasn't alone, that the betrayal wasn't my fault, and that my feelings were valid. Therapy helped too. Talking to someone neutral helped me untangle the emotional knots. Guilt, anger, shame, sadness. I started understanding that her actions reflected her choices, not my worth. And slowly I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. It wasn't instant healing. It was jagged, messy, and uncomfortable. But it was progress. And progress felt like the first step toward freedom. A few weeks after moving out, I had to face Emily one last time. Not for closure, not for drama, but for practical reasons. Finalizing the separation and dividing our stuff. I'll admit my stomach was in knots. I wasn't sure if I'd explode, cry, or just shut down completely. When I arrived, she greeted me with that same mix of fake sweetness and defensiveness. She immediately launched into an attempt to manipulate the conversation. I've changed. I promise I can be better. Don't throw away everything we've built. I stopped her right there. Calmly, firmly, I said, you've had months to change while lying to me. Actions speak louder than words. This is final. Her face twisted. Shock, anger, desperation. She tried the crocodile tears routine again. But it didn't work. Not this time. I felt almost detached, as if I was watching someone else act out in front of me. We went through the apartment, divided belongings, signed a few papers, and then it was over. She tried one last guilt trip. A sigh, a tear, a whisper of, I never thought it would end like this. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Walking out, I realized I wasn't just leaving the apartment. I was leaving the betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. I was leaving her behind, and it was the most liberating thing I'd felt in years. After everything, I realized the hardest part wasn't just leaving her. It was learning to trust myself again. For months, I had doubted my instincts, questioned my judgment, and let her gaslighting make me feel like the problem. Now I had to rebuild that foundation from scratch. I started small. I set boundaries for myself. No checking her social media, no replaying old conversations, no letting what-ifs creep back in. I focused on what I could control, my daily routine, my friendships, my work, my health. Little victories, going out for a run, cooking a new recipe, finishing a book, became milestones in reclaiming my confidence. I also allowed myself to feel sadness, anger, disappointment, all of it. I journaled, I vented to friends, I cried when I needed to. I realized that processing the pain was necessary to prevent it from festering. Slowly, trust in myself started to return. I learned to recognize red flags without panicking, to listen to my gut instead of dismissing it, and to prioritize my own emotional well-being above anyone else's lies or excuses. It wasn't easy, and it still isn't. But each day that passes without her interference, without her manipulations, I feel a little stronger, a little lighter, a little more in control of my own life. A few months into the separation, I started noticing things I hadn't in years. Little sparks of joy that had been buried under fear, doubt, and heartbreak. A morning where I actually laughed at a ridiculous YouTube video. A walk in the park without thinking about her. Cooking dinner just for myself and realizing I could enjoy it. I even started dating again, cautiously at first. Not with the expectation of finding the one immediately, but just to remind myself that connection could exist without betrayal. Every small interaction, a smile, a shared joke, a text that didn't end in anxiety, felt like reclaiming a part of myself. Friends commented on how I seemed lighter, calmer, even happier. I realized that being free from constant lies and manipulation wasn't just relief, it was liberation. And while the scars of the past are still there, they've become reminders of resilience rather than chains of pain. For the first time since discovering the affair, I could imagine a future where happiness wasn't conditional on someone else's honesty. I was learning that joy doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty, respect, and a willingness to let go of what hurts you. Looking back, the entire ordeal feels like a harsh, brutal teacher, one I never wanted but needed. There are lessons I've had to learn the hard way. First, trust your gut. I ignored my instincts for weeks because I wanted to believe the best in her, and it cost me months of heartbreak. Your intuition is usually right, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. Second, actions speak louder than words. Emily could say anything she wanted, apologies, promises, excuses, but her behavior told the real story. Lies, secrecy, and manipulation are patterns, not anomalies. Third, self-worth isn't dependent on someone else's love. For years, I measured myself by her happiness, her approval, her attention. Losing her made me realize that my value isn't tied to someone who treats me poorly. Finally, healing is messy but necessary. Anger, sadness, even guilt are all part of processing betrayal. Denying those emotions only prolongs the pain. Accepting them, confronting them, and learning from them is how you grow stronger. I won't lie, I'm still not over it entirely, but I've rebuilt a foundation I can trust. My own strength, my own judgment, and my own capacity for happiness. And that foundation will never crumble for someone else's dishonesty again. Now I'm finally at a point where I can look ahead without that constant knot of dread in my stomach. I've accepted that some things can't be fixed. Not every relationship is meant to last, and not every person is capable of honesty or loyalty. Emily's choices ended our marriage, and there's nothing I can do to change that. I've started making plans for my future. Small things at first, like redecorating my new apartment, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected, and taking trips I'd put off. But bigger things too, considering a new job opportunity, exploring hobbies I'd ignored, even thinking about love again, cautiously but openly. The thing I've learned is this: betrayal hurts like hell, but it also forces clarity. It teaches you what you will not tolerate, what you cannot compromise on, and who you truly are when stripped of illusions. I've emerged stronger, more self-aware, and, slowly but surely, genuinely hopeful. To anyone going through something similar, trust yourself, feel the pain, and remember that walking away from someone who betrays you isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself. And sometimes that's the bravest, most important choice you'll ever make.